The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the cracked pavement of the deserted train station. Beneath the flickering glow of a dying street lamp, she sat, huddled on a splintered bench, her thin coat soaked through, her face bruised, and her hands cradling the faint swell of her belly. She was barely 20, with eyes that carried the weight of a lifetime's sorrow. Her name was Clara, though no one had spoken it in days. She slept at the station, bruised and pregnant, a runaway from a life that had broken her one too many times. Then, in the quiet of that storm-soaked night, a shadow moved, a man in a weathered hat, a silent cowboy who knelt beside her, his eyes kind but guarded, as if he too knew the sting of a world that didn't care. Clara flinched when she saw him, her body tensing, ready to bolt. She'd learned to fear strangers, especially men. Her stepfather's fists had taught her that lesson, leaving purple blooms across her cheek and ribs. She'd fled her small Nebraska town 2 weeks ago, after the final beating, when she realized the life growing inside her deserved better than a home where love was a lie. With no money, no plan, and only a backpack stuffed with a change of clothes and a half-eaten granola bar, she'd ended up here, at this nowhere station in the middle of Wyoming, where trains rarely stopped and hope seemed even scarcer. The cowboy didn't speak at first. He just knelt there, rain dripping off the brim of his hat, his calloused hands resting on his knees. He looked to be in his late 30s, with lines etched deep into his face, like a map of hard years. His name was Eli, though Clara wouldn't learn that until later. He carried his own ghosts, memories of a wife lost to illness and a ranch lost to debt. He'd been driving through the night, heading nowhere in particular, when he saw her silhouette against the station's faint light. Something about her, maybe the way she curled into herself, protecting something precious, made him stop. "You all right, miss?" His voice was low, rough like gravel, but there was no threat in it. Clara didn't answer, just pulled her knees tighter to her chest. Her stomach growled, loud enough to be heard over the rain, and she flushed with shame. Eli noticed but didn't comment. Instead, he stood slowly, as if not to startle her, and walked back to his truck. Clara thought he was leaving, and a strange pang hit her, relief mixed with loneliness. But he returned with a thermos and a blanket, both worn but clean. He set them on the bench beside her, keeping his distance. "It's coffee," he said. "Hot. And the blanket's dry. You don't have to talk, but you don't have to freeze either." Clara hesitated, then reached for the thermos, her fingers trembling. The warmth of the cup felt like a small mercy, and the coffee, bitter but strong, woke something in her. She glanced at him, searching for an agenda, but his face was open, patient. For the first time in weeks, she felt seen, not as a problem, but as a person. The first challenge they faced was trust. Clara had none left. Every kind word in her past had come with strings, and she expected the same from Eli. He, in turn, struggled with his own instincts, to help without overstepping, to offer safety without scaring her off. Over the next hour, as the rain slowed to a drizzle, they sat in silence mostly, with Eli occasionally offering small, safe words about the weather or the station's history. Clara didn't respond much, but she didn't run either. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Why were you doing this?" Eli shrugged, staring at the tracks. "Seen too many people left alone when they shouldn't be. Didn't want to add you to that list." That night, Eli convinced Clara to come with him, not to his home, but to a diner a few miles down the road, where the lights were warm and the waitress, a gruff woman named Margie, didn't ask questions. Clara ate her first real meal in days, a plate of pancakes and eggs, while Eli sipped coffee across the booth. Margie, who'd seen her share of strays, slipped Clara an extra slice of pie and whispered, "You're safe here, hon," but safety felt foreign to Clara, like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. The second challenge was Clara's fear of what came next. She was 5 months pregnant, with no job, no home, and no one to call. The bruises on her body were fading, but the ones on her heart ran deeper. She was terrified of being a mother, of failing the tiny life inside her. Eli, for his part, wrestled with his own limitations. He was no savior, just a man scraping by, living out of his truck, doing odd jobs since the bank took his ranch. Yet he couldn't walk away. He offered Clara a deal. She could stay at a friend's empty trailer nearby, no strings, until she figured out her next step. In return, he asked only that she let him check on her now and then. Clara agreed, though suspicion lingered. The trailer was small, with peeling wallpaper and a leaky faucet, but it was warm and dry. For the first time in weeks, she slept without fear of footsteps in the dark. Eli kept his word, stopping by with groceries or to fix the faucet, always leaving before she felt crowded. Slowly, trust grew, not grand gestures, but small ones, like the way he left his second-hand crib outside the trailer one day, no explanation, just a note that said, "Thought you might need this." The third challenge was Clara's past catching up. A week after she settled in, her stepfather found her. He'd tracked her through a friend she'd called in a moment of weakness, and he showed up at the trailer, banging on the door, demanding she come home. His voice was all charm at first, promising forgiveness, but Clara knew better. She locked the door, heart pounding, as he grew louder, angrier. Eli, who'd been dropping off firewood, heard the commotion. He didn't hesitate. Standing between the trailer and Clara's stepfather, he faced the man down, his calm voice cutting through the threats. "She's not yours to take," Eli said, his hand resting on the knife at his belt, not as a threat but a promise. The stepfather, sensing Eli's resolve, backed off, cursing as he left that night. Clara told Eli everything, her stepfather's abuse, her mother's silence, the fear that had driven her to the station. Eli listened, saying little, but his quiet presence gave her space to breathe. For Eli, the confrontation stirred old wounds, memories of failing to protect his wife from a sickness he couldn't fight. Helping Clara became his way of reclaiming something he'd lost. Over the next few months, Clara and Eli built a fragile but real connection. She found work at Margie's diner, where the regulars adopted her as one of their own. Eli taught her how to fix things around the trailer, and she taught him how to laugh again, even if just a little. The town, small and rough around the edges, became a kind of home. But the biggest challenge loomed. Clara's baby was coming, and with it, the weight of becoming a mother. She doubted herself constantly, haunted by the thought that she'd repeat her mother's mistakes. Eli, too, faced his own fears of getting too close, of caring too much, only to lose again. When Clara went into labor, it was Eli who drove her to the hospital, holding her hand through the pain, his steady presence an anchor. The birth was hard, but when Clara held her daughter, a tiny girl with her mother's eyes, something shifted. She named her Hope, a quiet defiance against everything she'd endured. Eli, standing awkwardly in the hospital room, looked at the baby and saw a chance at redemption, not just for Clara, but for himself. The resolution wasn't a fairy tale. Clara still had hard days, moments when fear crept back in. Eli still carried his grief, though it grew lighter with time. But they faced their challenges together, not as a couple, but as two people who'd chosen to show up for each other. Clara learned to trust herself as a mother, finding strength in Hope's tiny grip. Eli found purpose in being there, not as a hero, but as a friend. The town rallied too, with Margie organizing a baby shower and the diner regulars pitching in for diapers and clothes. By the time Hope was 3 months old, Clara had saved enough to rent a small apartment. Eli helped her move, carrying boxes with the same quiet care he'd shown that first night at the station. As they stood in the empty trailer, Clara thanked him, her voice thick with emotion. "I was nobody when you found me," she said. Eli shook his head. "You were never nobody. You just needed someone to see it." The story ends with Clara pushing Hope's stroller through town, her head high, her bruises long faded. Eli watches from a distance, his truck idling, ready to move on to the next job, the next town. But he carries something new, a belief that small acts of kindness can change a life, maybe even two. The message is clear: no one is too broken to be seen, and no act of compassion is too small to matter. In a world that can feel cold and unyielding, choosing to kneel beside someone in the rain can be the start of something beautiful.